Well, it is that time again. And as you can tell by the music, it's a fun little ditty, little thing that we like to do around here is just have fun. And nothing is more fun than a psychotic demon from the other side of the realm. I'm talking about my good friend Crazy Steve joining me again here in what looks to be either a setting of you've taken over a mini golf arena in the background there, or,
You like
or
that, do you?
or a breakdancing art gallery. Which is it?
It could be a little bit of both. A little bit. This is where I currently reside. This is my portion of the house. Yeah.
Dude,
So
we all have that, don't we?
yeah. I mean, I'm a giant child, so like now I bought this house so I can color on the walls. So I've chosen to do so. Essentially.
Now, is it going to be one of those things? Are you going to leave it when you go to sell the house and upgrade or whatever? Or are you going to be that like self-conscious person, be like, no, I should probably paint over it, or paint over it with like one of those things that it only shows up after they turn the lights on?
We haven't. I haven't decided. To even keep the thing was not even my idea. It was the wife's idea. I had the entire basement painted in a similar fashion for a Halloween party, and then this was like the biggest mural that I did. And she saw this and was like, "We're keeping this." I was like, "Oh." So I always have the idea of like I'm going to destroy my art after I'm done with it anyway. So it doesn't. Right. I'm fine with that. But she was the one who wanted to keep it, so it might stay up here the entire time. We'll let whoever purchases the house to do whatever they want with it.
I remember for a time you were doing a lot of painting and selling a lot of stuff of that, right? And we never really got into it before in any of the time that we talked, I don't think. Where does your art come from? Like, what is it? Because it's very similar. There's a theme throughout. There's no doubt about it. It's chaos. It's whatever however you want to describe it, but it's even blended over into those ridiculous tattoos that you have. Where does the artwork come from? Like,
yeah, so that would be like my outlet when I couldn't wrestle.
Okay.
But I mean, like I've been drawing from as long as I can remember. I was always drawing. And I would draw my favorite wrestlers as a kid. I remember repeatedly drawing Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, the Undertaker, and stuff like that. I still have art books where that was like my motivation for drawing. And this would come before I ever would have the opportunity to go to a professional wrestling school. Okay. So it was just something I always did. I was, as a child, like I had my friends and stuff like that, but you could easily leave me alone in my room for 8 hours and I could entertain myself with, whether I could sit at my desk and I would just draw. I'd do comic books and stuff like that. And that's where like, I don't draw as much now, but my artwork has bled over into my pro wrestling with my face paint, or whether it be my gear or such and so forth. I've just kind of transitioned it over to become a piece of art as opposed to drawing art. And it's also the same reason why anytime I'm able to collect art from fans who have drawn me, it hits me so hard because it's something that I did as a kid. And for anybody to spend 6 minutes, let alone 16 hours on a drawing just of me is very overwhelming. It's very humbling. So it's super cool. And in my hallways here, I have collected various pieces of artwork from various fans throughout the years. So it's kind of cool to see.
Have you ever, because I only know of one other person, another Canadian guy who's a friend of ours. His name's Doug Knight. He's blind, legally blind. I don't know if it's the same kind of thing. It could be a million different things with the eyes or whatever, right? But he is a very accomplished right now comic book artist, right? And doing quite well, doing art stuff. And it always just kind of like, it intrigued me and always baffled me, like where, because the obvious question, you're
sure
blind.
Yeah.
And you're doing visual art. You know what I mean? I could understand like if you were doing music, but I mean, do you know how to play any instruments at all?
We can touch upon music later on.
Uh-huh.
We can definitely touch upon that because I cannot play an instrument to save my life. I've never really sat down and attempted it, despite owning 2 guitars. But that's when I see live music here before, it's like magic to me.
Yeah, but then art.
Yeah, Again, I don't like. I can't explain it myself. Like, I mean, just because I had, like, just because my eyesight is impaired from a day to day thing. Like up here, I still can see very clearly. I can look at a blank piece of paper and see something, and then somehow I'm able to put that on
See,
paper.
that's wild to me because I can make a stick figure look fat.
Right?
I
Yeah.
I couldn't draw flies if I was covered in shit, let alone something on a piece of paper. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like I just don't have that kind of artistic. I can draw boobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Well,
I don't
what,
have the ability to draw.
There's still a job out there for you, I'm sure. Then
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
don't give up on that dream.
those fine line tattoos are coming back into style. I
That's
hear,
right,
right?
sir. That's right. Yes.
Crazy. So okay, let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've ever asked you this for. We've known each other for holy Christ, ever since you started out, basically.
Correct. Yeah. 1,000%.
And it's always been, you've had this this crazy Steve thing. Why makeup and not a mask?
Yeah, that's a good question because you would think like every wrestler who starts out, like their first, like 9 times out of 10, there's a mask or there's makeup.
Right.
And I couldn't tell
you
you.
you looked like a 13-year-old for like the longest time until you started growing facial hair. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I get it. I get it and whatnot. But my thought was, it something because you're already kind of like visually impaired enough as it was inside of the ring? You didn't want to be like even more so, and also the no breathing.
Yeah, the breathing thing probably wouldn't have thought of that because I would have had nothing to compare it to. I never would have
Right.
had done it. But the sight thing definitely makes sense. And I think part of it, like I was doing face paint in like when I was doing backyard wrestling. So like, I already had the idea of a character because when I was doing that, like that's kind of what our friends and us, we focused on character stuff as opposed to like what backyard wrestling is mostly popularized for, which is like the blood and stupidity and fire and stuff like that, and elements of danger, where we as a bunch of buddies just looked at it from like a storyline perspective and stuff like that. We still did crazy stuff, but we didn't focus on that.
Right.
And I feel like the makeup thing is part of like I liked it came from like a music standpoint. Like I liked bands like Mudvayne and Slipknot and Rob Zombie, and like all these bands are very theatrical in how they looked, but a lot of them implemented face paint. And so Marilyn Manson being another one too. Like all of these, and at the time that was what was popular and like in my circle anyway. And so I just took that vibe, that look, mixed it with my own, like whatever I could throw at it, and threw it in like a pro wrestling sense. And yeah, and so that's why I've always been Crazy Steve. A lot of people think that I started out as the clown in 2014.
Well, I can attest to that. That was not the case.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I ran a program for damn near a year. For the longest time, you would come out in a fucking straitjacket. You know what I mean? When you were still working on the indies before signing up to TNA and leaving Canada, basically, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This is another thing that I was going to ask you. So like the character has always been from the start a lot closer to what the character is now. I can see the evolution. I can see the evolution of where you are now, character-wise, being a direct descendant, or a direct result of where you started, right? Yes. With that psychotic character.
Yes.
So let's talk about the fucking clown.
Yeah.
Why was that a thing? How did that come about? Whose idea was it? And why was it done?
So it was never anybody's intentions in the first place. The idea of the menagerie originally consisted of Mike Knox and Rebel as part of this circus act. That was the plan, and that was done through a member of TNA who I cannot remember for the life of me. Starred in Happy Days. Oh God, why can't I think of his name? Jason something. Anyway, I digress. It's his idea. Jason Harvey. It's his idea. He had the idea for the menagerie. He's in big with TNA at the time. So I get a dark match at the same time that they had this idea. And my first match was against Eric Young. And this is a dark match where there's no fans. It's just the bosses, the head honchos. So it's an entire impact zone, but super intimate and could be awkward for most people. It's a very awkward atmosphere. But I'm Crazy Steve, and I don't need you to cheer for me. I just need to make you feel weird. Mm-hmm. And the atmosphere is already weird, so that's a happy place for me. Because it's already awkward. I can just make it more awkward with me.
Sure.
Me, right? So we have this match, and I'm Crazy Steve. I got the loincloth on. I have the straight jacket entrance, the whole nine. And me and Eric Young have a match, and it's great because Eric Young is in it. So collectively, we got all good feedback from everybody, and we think to ourselves, okay, well, you probably won't wrestle tomorrow. No one's ever done like 2 dark matches in a row. If they like what they saw, they got it today. You'll probably hear something tomorrow, but don't expect to wrestle. Bring your stuff, but don't expect anything. Great, cool, great. Next day arrives, I'm in another dark match. Okie dokie. All right. I'm wrestling. He's one of the descendants from the Samoans, ironically enough. And I think he was a student of Tommy Dreamer, he said. He's younger than me. And I got the sense they're putting me in a match with this guy because he's younger and they want to see if I can lead, because anybody can have a good match with Showtime Eric Young.
Right.
So
especially one of his students. So
let's put him to the test, of course. Yeah. In between that, I had got the knowledge that they were doing this circus gimmick, the menagerie with Mike Knox and Rebel. And they saw what they saw the day prior, and they thought, oh, he'd make a good, he could be a cool clown. And so with that knowledge in mind and the opportunity to do another match, I painted my face like a clown. I had brought in another jacket that was more clown-like. It was a suit jacket. I didn't wear the loincloth. I just wore trunks. And the feedback that I got from Tommy Dreamer, which was really good feedback, I implied to that match where my mannerisms were completely different. I came up with the neck snap that day. Just everything. I just completely changed all my stuff, but gave them. Now I'm in an opportunity as well, whereas I'm leading the match. So there's a lot of moments for me to kind of just stand out by making the most out of nothing, right? Just even how I walk or all sorts of stuff. That's my bread and butter. I really love stuff like that. It's not so much about the moves, but it's what comes before them. And after that, I basically gave them no reason not to hire me. If you want a creepy clown, I can do that. I've already been doing it for 12 years. Now you want me to paint it with a couple different shades. Perfect. Let's go. That's fine. So that was the match. And then I was hired pretty much right after that. And then I'm thinking to myself, this is cool. So now I'm getting more information that we're going to be this creepy, carnival family. And this is for anybody listening, this is before the Wyatts are even a thing. This is 2014. And so in my head, we're going off of I'm going off of the Devil's Rejects. Okay. I'm going off of a bunch of, these are my motivations for how we look, how we're going to act. Because it's a creepy, could be, maybe it's some sort of satanic kind of dark, twisted clown thing, right. Circus thing. Okay. We're going to be these awesome heels. There's opportunity for some really cool entrances and I really wanted dirty. I really wanted just grimy. Okay. No color. I wanted to avoid of color and that sort of thing, and just really gross and grimy. And then we get to TV and we find out we're baby faces.
Yeah. They made you guys the oddities.
Yeah. And then we were like, oh no. What? We felt like, how do you not see it? It's we should be, this is not the time for that. The audience was ready. I think the audience was ready for, and if they weren't ready for it, then let's give them that anyway. Let's go with dark and dirty and grimy and no, they wanted the oddities. Yeah. And so now but from a personal standpoint, I finally, after 12 years of grinding on the independent scene, I'm getting this opportunity to wrestle on television as my full-time gig. And I'm going to show them what I'm capable of. Like, you want me to be a clown? I'll be a clown. I'll be the babyface clown. That's perfectly fine. Like my trainer is Eric Young. If anything, he's the perfect example of being versatile and showing his employer of how valuable it is to be versatile in any role that you give him. You want him to be the funny man, he'll be the best funny man. You want him to be the main event, he can do that too. It doesn't matter the card or where he's at, he can do it all.
Yeah.
And I come from that, and so if you're challenging me with, I had this idea, but you want to go this way, okay, let's go, and I'll do that too because I'm awesome at professional wrestling.
Fucking
right, like but like that's the mentality that I go with.
100%. 100%.
Like,
I mean, you're okay at best.
Yeah, I'm satisfactory at best. But I'm going in with the mindset of I am the best, right? So like,
I could show you I can show you well over a year's worth of footage where it wasn't that good. Now maybe that was me in the ring, but whatever.
Show me. Is that what you're gonna do? Okay, all right. You can put it in front of me. I ain't gonna see any.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So then, okay, let me ask you this: how happy were you when they finally said to you, "We're getting rid of this gimmick"?
So they never said that.
You just did it?
Well, because what ended up happening is like Jason Harvey left the company. He was our backing force. It could have been a cool thing, right? Because he was the one really pitching for this. And then, like within a month, he had left the company. And so now we have a whole bunch of other writers, a whole bunch of different management coming in. And so I show up to TV one day and Rob Terry is fired. He's gone. And then I show up again. And then like a few months later, Nux is gone. And then it's just me and Rebel, and she's off on doing her own thing. And I'm in X Division spots as the clown here and there. And I made the most out of that by doing the least, right? If I'm in a battle royal, I'll come in and I'll shoot silly string and it still gets over and everyone else does their flips. And I'm only in it for a few minutes, but you'll remember why I was there. Again, I try to make the most out of what I'm given.
Yeah.
And show that I'm a team player, and whatever you want to do, I can do it to the best of my ability.
And
but I don't want to be here.
And so sorry, go ahead.
So what ended up happening was being frustrated with that role. I needed to create change. And so I pitched to them with the help of EY. Like, we sat down and I put together a package of why I need to be aligned with Abyss. Even when I was trying to work with the company in 2009, I was sending them clips. It was always me and Abyss. I always wanted to work with him because I felt like our characters, even if you didn't know who I was on the independent scene, if you have 30 seconds, I can give you a reason why you think me and him would be a good pair out of everybody on that roster.
Yep.
Far be it for me to walk in as an unknown and say, hey, I need to work AJ Styles, your world champion. Like, that's silly. You don't say that, right? But Abyss and me makes sense, even if we don't match up size-wise, character-wise, there's something there. At least I thought so. And I was really pitching for that. So after doing the clown thing, I pitch that me and Abyss need to be a tag. And they listened to it. They even put us together in like I think they called it a Joker's Wild thing. It was one of their like one night only pay-per-views. And they put us together as like a test to see how it would work out. And anyway, and then so it came around Christmas time. I was informed that we're going to do Decay. It's going to happen. It wasn't known as Decay at the time,
right?
But I was specifically told by John Gabork that we're going to go with your idea. We're going to pair you with Abyss, but we want to add a female to the group as well. And I was like, oh, this is great. So I went home with that knowledge, and they didn't have like a set idea on who the female was going to be. And so Rosemary happened to be doing the Demon Assassin character in Smash and like killing it in Canada. And I thought, I've known her from day one. Like, she's one of my best friends. She's got this awesome character going on right now. I wonder if I can pitch her. But I called her and I said, I don't know what you're doing with wrestling or life, but would you be okay if I threw your name in the hat for this idea that we're going with? And she was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I threw the name in the hat. They wanted a promo and a couple matches. And within like 2 to 3 weeks, there was a contract waiting for her. So now we're off to the races. Now everything is just kind of rolling at this point. Billy Corrigan he's just happened to be on board with TNA at the time. He's really into this. He's the one who coined the decay. And now I'm with Abyss, who I've always wanted to work with, and I'm with one of my best friends in Rosemary. And we are all coming together on this cool idea. And to me, this is easy. Like, it's old hat. Like, all I was doing, like, the whole time I'm doing the clown thing, in my back pocket, I have this other character that's like, I have, as you mentioned, like, I have 12 years of another whole thing that I was doing that we can go to.
Yeah.
And so when Decay kind of came around, for anybody who had followed me on the independents, knew, like, oh, this is Steve in his element. This is, and now it's just kind of everything up to this point is all me and my element sort of thing.
It was one of those things. Like, when I first saw that and you coming out with Abyss, I was like, this makes sense to me. All right. This is where Steve needs to be, character wise. And then you've taken it another step. You've taken it another step further now with this new thing. Kind of how'd you come up with the mask idea? Is it, watching Nightbreed one day or something?
No, it was all the concept of not even the mask idea. Like, I've never worn a mask.
Right.
You would, like, a lot of times characters similar to mine come with masks. And so part of it was a conscious thing of, like, I don't ever want to wear masks because it's just too commonplace. Mm-hmm. But then it came to the point of, like, even to what I wear, right down to the trunks and kick pads, that was given to me through Brian Myers, of all people, when I was trying to come up with, like, what I should look like with this character. I wanted to, again, like, if Decay is something that was originally my idea, I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm destroying that now. And I did that in a television standpoint, but also in my brain. I'm destroying my own artwork to create something new. And I didn't know what the character should look like. And Brian Myers had suggested, he said, like, do you ever see yourself wearing trunks and kick pads? He says, I know it's not, like, original by any stretch of the imagination, but you yourself, as far as I know, have never done that on television. And he said, to your credit, like, you have a good build. It's not like you couldn't pull it off. And so I thought about it, and I was like, because I'm overthinking it too, right? I'm thinking it needs to be something even more elaborate and stuff like that. But to scale it back, it works. And I don't wear, like, the face paint. I wear very little face paint. I'm really showing a lot more now. And it's just the evolution of that. The mask kind of comes from not so much I wanted to wear a mask, but, like, wouldn't it be cool to take a mask off from the mouth, like a big Chelsea grin, and you literally tear the whole thing off your face.
It reminds me of Beetlejuice.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Remember the one, like, snaky face gimmick, and you see him, his mouth opens up and the other one comes out and opens up and opens up. That's what it kind of reminds me of.
I picture something like Venom.
Yeah.
Right. Where you're tearing something off to reveal what's underneath. And so I thought, that's cool. So I made contacts with a mask maker, and I asked him if it would be possible. And he said, sure, I think it could be. And then as far as the look, I didn't want something super detailed. I wanted more theater of the mind to play tricks when you see it, similar to Michael Myers or Scream, how they're very, like, they're just basic, and shadows will play effect on them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the look came from. And then I added my own 2 cents when I finally got the finished mask. I added my own pieces of artwork to it to kind of make it its own thing. But it's more of a symbol of, like, shedding dead skin and becoming something new each time you see me. And again, I've destroyed Decay, but it's a rebirth in that whole thing. Like, it's, again, I've overthought the whole thing, and I don't expect wrestling fans, when they see the entrance, to think these things. But it just goes to say, like, this is what I put into it, like the whole entrance and stuff like that. Like, it's my thought process going into it. So,
fanboys and girls out there will love hearing stuff like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Right.
So you're just giving them fuel to the fire, brother.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you this. Because you're very good at writing stuff out in your mind, and okay, the evolution is this, the evolution is that. What is the next step for evolution for a Crazy Steve character? Because you are right now, you are the current TNA digital media champion, right? Where do you defend that, first of all? Like, is this like, you know what I mean? Like, I know that there's like specific titles for specific things. Is there other kind of media obligations that you have to do along with that?
No, there's not. And I look at this title because when it was first announced, it was supposed. I feel like it was supposed to be something that it is drifted away from that.
Okay.
I like originally I thought when its inception was that the title was only defended on Facebook, and it would be an opportunity to reach a different audience, which makes sense for this digital media championship. But now it's kind of become another title on a TV show.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that's where I've come to find it in my path.
So obviously with the landscape of what it is with TNA right now, and we've talked about it before, and we both know, I mean, you obviously know Scott a lot more intimately than I do, but I know Scott nonetheless for many, 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 many years, and everything has changed there. And it seems to be a big shakeup right now. Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of like, what are we doing? But as a unit, as the heartbeat of that company, the performers and the people that work in the back, you guys all have to work as a collective, but also individually. Right. So this is why I say, like, is there opportunity, and have you started to think about, is there an opportunity to make something more out of this digital media championship that you have right now, because that's your opportunity. This is like, listen, you guys have given this to me. I understand that we're switching, things are going to be the same, but different, but who knows? I have some ideas.
I definitely have ideas.
Okay.
Whether or not there's opportunity, I don't know yet.
Right.
Well, because I don't know the landscape of things right now. That's where we're at.
Right.
All of this stuff has happened in between tapings for us.
Mm-hmm.
We just finished a set of TVs, and then and in between those sets, and I don't know when this will air, but our next TVs are in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So right now, where I'm sitting, I'm in the void, where we don't know those Zoom meetings that have popularized the internet that everyone knows about. Like, I was a part of those, and I got no answers. I don't know what it looks like going forward. We'll find out in New Orleans. But as an individual and as somebody who is passionate about professional wrestling, of course I have ideas. I understand the opportunity that's given to me with this championship. So and I have no idea how long I'm going to have it. I don't even know if they see how long I'm going to have it, or if they did and now it's changed. I don't know any of that. So I'm looking at it as an opportunity. I want to tell stories with this thing. I want to make it important to the best of my ability. Whether I'm given that chance is not up to me. But if they come to me saying, hey, we're going to give you this chance, I'm not going to twiddle my thumbs thinking of ideas. I'm going to say, here's idea A, here's idea B. You don't like that? Here's idea C. Maybe we combine them. Here's stuff. Take things, what you like, take what you don't like. Let's create something together.
Have they given you any kind of indication? Because obviously it's going to be different in the sense, Scott's not there. Scott has always been very much, hey, Scott, can I talk to you about something? You know what I mean? Hey, Scott, I got an idea. Can I pitch you this? Right. I can't imagine that's going to be the same kind of thing, because the new president, I don't know, I could be wrong on this, but I don't think that he's going to be as forward with the performers as, say, Scott was. I could be wrong. So is there other people? Is it going to be Tommy that you're going to have to pitch this stuff to going forward?
I
Is
would
there
imagine, but
yeah.
like I feel like there'll be somebody in that place.
Yeah.
I don't think whoever's taking over for Scott is coming in with the idea of I know better than Scott when it comes to professional wrestling.
Right.
I think, but he also has. But I know, I mean, we have plenty, not just Tommy, but Gail Kim as well. We have a Lance Storm. There's plenty of pockets to choose from when it comes to what do we do in places where I don't feel comfortable.
So we can basically start the rumor here and now that you're going to be taking that position with the company.
No, not based off. No, no, sir. I don't want that headache. Not without a few more zeros on my contract. Let's put it that way.
Listen, even then, everybody says that. Everybody says that until they're like, okay, I'm going to promote a show. Then it comes time to do that. And it's the last thing you want to do. It was funny. I was talking with Conrad Thompson previously, and we were talking about, because he's the one that put on Ric Flair's last match, that whole show. And it's the one time that he's ever been put on the hat and been a wrestling promoter. And he says straight up, he goes, the thing that I learned most about this was that I never want to do that again.
No, I'm not interested. I don't want that headache.
Right. It is an absolutely thankless job. So
I may be crazy, but I'm not stupid. Let's be clear about that right now.
All right. Well, let's talk about another crazy thing. Let's go back in time a little bit. Tell me about Kamala.
Oh my goodness. What a sweetheart. What an absolute sweetheart. The first time I ever met him was in 2005, and I'm helping out Sin Bodhi with Warrior One Wrestling. Warrior One Wrestling was a one-time adventure with Sin Bodhi's madness that he put together. One of the craziest wrestling cards I've ever been a part of. If you look at it, I started in 2003. This show is taking place in 2005. I'm very new in pro wrestling, 2 years in, very new. And I'm on a show where Kid Cash is wrestling Bryan Danielson and another independent talent in a three-way. You got Nigel McGuinness is on the show. Mick Foley is a special guest referee against NWA's TNA champion Raven versus Ring of Honor champion Samoa Joe. Scott D'Amore and all of Team Canada are involved. There's a lot of talent that's being brought in. And I'm 2 years in, and I'm being tagged up with WWE legend Kamala versus recently signed Highlanders, who is managed by Jimmy Hart.
Crazy.
It's, yes, of course, only Sin Bodhi's wacky mind could come up with this whole scenario, right? And sidebar, but had the shows continued, the idea was for me, because Sin, he was in my first match. He coined the name Crazy Steve. I have a lot of history with him. And his idea was each show I run, you're going to be with a different oddity. It could be Kamala this show, but the next show, maybe it's the missing link. And then the next show, it's all of the wacky weirdos from pro wrestling he was going to pair me up with, was the original idea, which is, I was more than happy to take. That would be, it's fantastic. I could go on and on about that. I digress. So I meet up with Kamala. He's just a sweetheart of a human being. Introduces me to his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And I remember at such a young age, so naive, I I was so taken back by wait, how old are you? You have a girlfriend? I just expected him to have his wife after 40 years of marriage and this, that. No, I was not ready for a girlfriend at all. So I was oh, damn, Kamala, you're okay, you're getting down still. All right. And then the other thing I remember from that initial day was because I remember we did a bunch of stuff in the daytime. We went bowling and they had cameras filming this bowling atmosphere, and we were playing in an arcade. And of course, he's in full gimmick. We had Kimchi with us. It was a whole adventure. And I remember the match, specifically putting the match together. Even 2 years in, I knew, hey, listen, I'm taking the heat, and I'm tagging you in, Kamala. I know how this goes, and I am more than happy to do that because you I watched you growing up. For real, I was honored to do that. And he says to me, no, Steve, I think I'll take the heat. And I said, what? Yeah, you're gonna do a whole that flip flopping and flying around. I'll take the heat. And I'm like, sure? Like I argued with him, and he was convinced. No, he wanted to take the heat, and to his dismay, I didn't have a really banging hot comeback. In all honesty, I had focused on taking heat and selling, and I'm good at that too. Like I was very, like I was focused on that. I didn't have this whole put together thing, but he was insistent on it, even to the point where like the ring we were working in, there was a piece of like the middle of the ring, there was a piece of padding that was missing, and it was just the boards. And he's still bumping and like he's doing all this stuff, and even knowing that ahead of time, he still refused to take the hot tag when all he really had to do to get everyone rocking and rolling is come in, slap his belly, big splash in the corner, pin the guy, roll him over, pin him again. Like the whole, like, do your thing, do what you do. That's what everyone came to see. They didn't come to see me. But he was such a sweetheart, and we had such a fun time and such a good match that each time he came back to Ontario, he requested that he would work with me.
100%.
And then I finally got my wish, where it became Crazy Steve does the shine, Crazy Steve takes the cutoff, Crazy Steve takes the heat, Kamala gets the hot tag, and we did get to a point where we got to do it, and that was how we did it. But he was such a sweetheart. He wanted me to come down to Memphis and work with him in Lawler. I remember I broke my ankle. It was the only injury that took me out of wrestling, and I was in surgery. And the day I was going into surgery, he texted me out of the blue. And I was like, dude, what? He's like, I heard you're having surgery today. I just want to check up on you. Want to see how you're doing. Like, he was awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
James is one of the coolest dudes. And you know what? A lot of people, they know it now, but at the time, nobody knew the voice of an angel. Very few people knew that dude can sing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, now you know, it's on YouTube. Look up Kamala's album.
Yeah, now you know. Back then, you didn't. People just
And
then when you heard it, you were like, "Oh, is that what? Huh? What? Huh? Who?
Totally
the same
threw
guy?
Me off.
This guy? What? It's amazing. Good for you. I got one more for you that I've always, because you've been fortunate enough. You've met just working in TNA and the flow of people coming in and out of there and stuff like that, right? But I want to ask you about one other person. And this is a guy that I grew up watching. When I was a kid. Back watching the AWA at the Showboat Hotel and Casino all the time. I'm talking about Ricky Morton.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about Ricky.
I'm going through the Rolodex as you're describing it. I'm trying to pick out names, and I'm like, who is he going to pick out? Oh, Ricky. Oh, Uncle Ricky. So if you had have told, pick an age, geez, if you had have told 6-year-old Steve to 26-year-old Steve that he was going to be best friends with Ricky Morton, I would have slapped you in your face. It came out of nowhere, but what a blessing. I happen to be fortunate enough to be married to a lovely lady who has happened to just known Ricky for years, being in the area that we live in. And so when we started dating and started seeing each other, and then through pro wrestling, you happen to cross each other's paths quite often. So there was a moment in time where I was the head trainer at Ricky Morton's school. And just me and Ricky anybody who's met Ricky Morton knows that he's a gem. So there's no one, there's honestly nobody, and I don't know anyone who has a bad word to say about Ricky Morton. So for me to gush about how well we get along, it's like everybody gets along with Ricky because he's Ricky. You know what I mean? But I've gotten to share some really cool experiences and some fun times. Many 4th of Julys were out on his boat, and there's good times to be had. There's stories. There's some stories there. And I've also had the pleasure of working with him too in the ring on shows a couple times, which is it's something that you can check off your list, but there's not a lot of us who are going to be able to check that off their list.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
He's one of the only guys that still looks exactly the same, just an older version of, but just looks fantastic, still working. Unbelievable.
And here's the thing is people say oh, he's still working. Yeah, he's still wrestling on shows. You still see him wrestling in shows. What you don't see is him going to the gym every like at 5 o'clock in the morning. You don't
Yeah.
see him eating his meals that he's eating. Like when we say working, like he's working 24/7
Yeah.
around the clock, if not more so than someone who's younger who has the metabolism of a 26-year-old who can eat McDonald's. Like Ricky can't do that. He's still grinding. It doesn't matter. And he's doing it not because he has to. He's doing it because he loves professional wrestling. Ricky Morton is a soul saver when you meet him. If you are bitter about pro wrestling or if you're jaded, which a lot of us can be at certain times because pro wrestling can be a shit sandwich in a lot of times. If you come into contact with Ricky Morton, whether it be like just passing him in the airport or sitting down having lunch with him for hours, you're going to walk away with like, you feel uplifted. Like he's just an awesome human being. And, you know, I'm from Canada.
Yeah.
We didn't get the NWA growing up. It was all WWF. It's not to say that I didn't see the NWA, but it was not my number one thing. I never grew up with the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express.
Yeah.
I got to see it,
Yep.
but like that was until years later. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so taking me from that pocket of the world and then putting me, now I'm so close with Ricky Morton, who holds so much lineage within professional wrestling, just on a different place than I was brought up. It's super cool to have that convergence come together. Like, yeah, I don't know how else to like, it's something that I never thought would be possible, but the art of professional wrestling brought us together. It's super cool.
Those still to this day, I talk about it with Brady all the time. And those NWA studio shows, Saturday, WTBS, you know, that's where I fell in love with like guys like Nikita Koloff. Still to this day, one of my favorite heels of all time. Like scared me as a human.
Yeah,
you know me, Steve.
Okay.
I don't get scared from anybody. But Nikita Koloff was one of those characters that like, oh yeah, I love this. Right.
Actually believe you were a child. I feel like you just looked like this from the time you were born, tattoos and facial hair and all. So when you say someone scared you like Nikita Koloff, I feel like even 6-year-old Tid tatted up was still afraid of. Yeah. So that's impressive. It's impressive.
But that's where I fell in love with that whole style of wrestling and putting on a show, and everything meant something. It was all those studio shows were set up for the bigger live events, you know, the commercial for in Greensboro and Raleigh and, you know, wherever it was. But that's what it was all about. And you had that in a regional thing. You had that in Texas too with World Class that I absolutely adored as well. Portland was another thing. The nice thing being where I was in Vegas is like I got all of that stuff. Portland was like this hidden gem that had everybody from like Iceman King Parsons to Matt Bourne, who I later on in life got to meet. So I get it when you know, that was one of those things for me. It was like they say, don't meet your heroes or whatever, but in the world of professional wrestling, you absolutely want to meet your heroes because you never, know when you're not going to get a chance to meet your heroes.
Yeah, so the fact sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Like, I mean, like but like ultimately, yes, you do. Yeah. I've just started watching Portland, like thanks to YouTube. Now I'm getting to catch up on stuff like that. And you're right. It is a hidden gem.
Yeah,
it's
man.
So
Iceman King Parsons and Leapin' Lanny Poffo back then, unbelievable. I mean, and I'll even say it, Billy Jack Haynes back then, like the Portland stuff. A lot of it was it was absolutely amazing. Don Owen did a fucking great job. He sold out the Coliseum when the WWF couldn't sell out the Coliseum.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good for him. I'm going to ask you a couple of silly questions here. First of all.
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready for it.
You ready? You're warm? Yeah. You primed up? All right. Why are your tattoos?
Get weird.
Why are your tattoos so stupid? They don't have outlines or nothing. Huh? What's the matter with you?
Have you ever known me to color in between the lines?
I don't even know if you can see the lines.
Yeah, but you've seen my artwork. I never color in the lines. Come on now.
Next question.
Yeah, let's go.
You're the last person to ever wrestle Dave Christ. Do you feel responsible for him leaving the business?
No, wait. On television? On television? Is that what you're saying?
I'm kidding, dude. I'm completely kidding.
I was also the last person to wrestle Joey Ryan. on
Oh,
television.
Jesus Christ. You're just killing off all the bad guys in the business.
I'm just saying. Yeah,
you're like a superhero like Batman. Now, okay, let's talk. Did the whole idea of Crazy Steve, because wasn't that a Batman thing as well? If I'm not mistaken, there was some kind of weird story where there was like a hobo or something had found the suit and had put on the Batman suit, and they were referring to him as that's just Crazy Steve.
I don't know this to be fact or fiction, sir. I'm not sure. You're telling me new knowledge here.
All right, we're just going to start that rumor as well.
Okay, let's throw that out there. Let's throw it out there.
Let's talk a little bit about music, because I know that you are very much into music. Who are you into right now? Who's on the turntable? Because I know you don't. I know you don't watch a lot of movies or a lot of TV. I know you watch some, right? And here's my other question: when you watch movies, do you watch it with the visually the definitions being told to you? You ever watch that channel?
I hate that. I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Here's why. Because I'm either focused on the bottom of the screen so I can read the dialogue, or I'm looking at what's happening and I can never get both. So it's really difficult for me to do that. I will say I have a rather large television and the couch is fairly close to where I feel like most people who come over to watch viewing parties or whatever, they probably feel like it's probably too close, maybe based off of the brightness of the television, but I've made it to where it works for me.
Because I've had a couple of times where I've been watching some show on some channel, and all of a sudden you'll hear this voice describe what's going on the TV at the same time, and I'm like, what up?
Yeah, no,
can't do it.
Not interested.
Right. And if there's words on the bottom, it better be a foreign film that I can't speak.
Even then, like I really want to watch Godzilla minus one.
Right.
I believe what it's called. But it's because it's foreign, I can't watch it because I'm either going to be focused on what's happening on the screen, which is like just as impressive, but like I'll be missing the story, which is also equally important. So unless there's a dubbed version, I don't know if I'll ever get the enjoyment that I could really get out of that movie, which is unfortunate because I've only heard good things.
Well, if there's not a dubbed version, I'll make one for you.
Please, yes, I'll take your commentary as well. Yes.
Perfect.
You got to do
music.
Do color commentary. You and Jesse Scott.
That'd be the
color commentary.
The best. The best.
Yes, 1000%.
All right. Yeah, music. Who you hot on right now, buddy?
Okay, this is a good opportunity for me to circle back to what we began with. But either way, right off the bat. Okay, so like my music taste for anybody is it varies, but it's mostly dark and it's very loud and probably obnoxious to the general audience. So I'm only going to find a pocket of you who really like what I'm into right now, but I'll feel free to divulge. One of the first bands that comes to mind is a band called Shame. Their album is called Shame. The band is called Meth, actually.
Okay.
Hard to forget that name, but the recent album is called Shame. I'm into them. I can't not mention my boys from Atlanta, GA 68. They have been an influence to me for many, many years. It's just a guitarist who's also a vocalist and a drummer, and they make as much awesome noise as they possibly can. If you like terribly good rock and roll, look up 68. They're for you. Chelsea Wolfe, a beautiful singer who has just recently come out with an album. If you haven't heard Chelsea Wolfe, she'd probably be maybe the most popular out of everyone I don't know that I'm going to mention that you might know. She's great. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, if you're in the gym and you want some heavy stuff, you need to look up my boys in Rot Nest. I bring up Rot Nest not only because they are my boys, however, as of next week, February 20th, Rot Nest is going to debut a brand new single, which so happens to be my theme music, which Rot Nest is the band responsible for the current Crazy Steve theme music, which I helped come up with. It's the very first piece of music I ever took place in helping create. And just recently, I had the boys over at my place of residence, and we recorded a different version of that theme music, but with vocals this time, and I am on said song in as a feature for vocals. So it's my first time with doing anything in the realm of music, but something that I've always wanted to do. I feel like most musicians who are fans of pro wrestling have said to me, like, in fact, 100% of musicians that I've met that like pro wrestling have said, if I wasn't a musician, I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And I know a plethora of pro wrestlers who said if it wasn't for pro wrestling, I would have been a musician.
And how many musicians do we know in pro
that are pro wrestling? Yeah, of course,
right?
They bleed into each other. I am not proficient in writing music or reading music or playing an instrument, but before professional wrestling, I didn't have a physical outlet to do things. So I would scream. I liked screamy, yelly music, as I've already talked about. So I would mimic what I hear. And so like I got pretty good at it in my teenage years. And like, it was my physical outlet. But then once I found pro wrestling, I just kind of abandoned that altogether and focused all my attention on professional wrestling. Now I find myself, because of pro wrestling, getting in contact with bands who like what I do, and I've developed relationships with that, and this band Rot Nest, we go back quite a ways, and they just kind of fit my image. I kind of fit their image. We have general interests, and it just all kind of came together naturally to the point where I needed new theme music. Decay was done. I had finished it, and I needed new theme music, so I reached out to them, and they were like one of the first bands I've ever contact with that were like, hey, if you need new theme music, hit us up. I'm ready.
So will this be debuting? Will this be debuting at the New Orleans show?
The hope is that I like the my theme music with vocals is done. It's complete. We're ready. It will be coming out on February 20th. The lyric video will drop February 20th. We're going to shoot the actual music video in March. That will be debuting later this year. And then when they're out on tour, and if schedules don't crisscross, I will be performing said single with them on tour as well when that happens. So it's a whole new like adventure that I'm getting into, but I'm super excited to branch out into that field. Especially with these guys, they're just super cool and they're awesome to be around. It's a good circle to be around of human beings.
Are you going to be a singer in a rock and roll band, Steve?
There's an opportunity for there to be YouTube footage of me singing in a rock and roll band at some point in a venue. Now that doesn't say much if you really write it down and break it down, but it's a venue that I never thought I'd see myself in, but I'm super excited to be in.
All right. If you had your choice outside of wrestling, what would it be? Music or acting?
Acting, likely, I think.
Yeah.
The music is, I don't know. That's a tough one. I say acting. I think they both appeal to my artistic side, but I feel like acting has more of an opportunity to make some cash where I could continue to act as well as just pay my bills. Whereas music, I feel like that's the expensive hobby.
Like wrestling.
And I did that with wrestling, but I did it in my teens.
Right.
Doing it going into my 40s, not a responsible decision.
But now you could be like that Johnny Depp dude, right? Or like Keanu Reeves or something.
Yeah. I don't think you can compare me to those guys. I don't think that works. I'm sorry, but no. No, that doesn't work.
That's amazing. Yeah, it was funny. The reason I bring up music and like what you're listening to now is because I just got sent over. Our friend Blue Meanie just sent me. He's like, "Hey, have you heard this yet? Kerry King from Slayer has a new band coming out called Idle Hands, and it's with the singer from like Death Angel is in it, and one of the guitar players from Machine Head. And it's like I was listening to it, and I was like, wow, it sounds fantastic. And I forgot how much that the singer from Death Angel and this new stuff sounds like Sam Kinison. It was fantastic. So just imagine Sam Kinison singing metal music, right?
Sure.
Fantastic. If you were watching something, I know that last time we spoke, you had just finished watching like Dahmer or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, I got it. I'm updated. Let's go. What you got
Yeah.
for me? Yep.
What are you watching now, though? Is my question.
Here's what's bringing me to TV. Again,
Okay.
I don't watch a lot.
That's what I'm
My
saying.
brain just won't work that way. Yeah. I even like I'm not a big video game guy either. Too like I can only sit. I spend a lot of money for my entertainment center based off my eyesight and wants and needs.
Mm-hmm.
But to be real, like when I'm sitting down in front of my TV, like I can only do it for a little bit. My brain is like, you got to get up and go outside. Let's go take out the dogs. Let's go do something. I can only do it for a bit. But so what draws me to TV right now is True Detective season 4.
Oh, so good.
It is so good. We're on episode 5. I mean, that series. If there's anybody who has not watched season 1 of True Detective,
oh, it's a masterpiece. It was
you're
an
missing
absolute
out on 8 hours of your time, 8 hours of like some of the best cinema in television history.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. 100%. You ever have those moments? Cause this happens in my house where I'll come home and it seems like more often than not, wow, that was a fucking Freudian slip. If my wife is watching TV, it's usually one of these like murder mystery type shows, true crime, somebody's being killed. It's almost to the point where I think that like she's trying to take tips from all of them to see like what not to do.
It's homework.
That's what she's doing, tape study. She said it's like us watching matches.
Yeah.
You know,
you might be onto something there. You might want to come up with a plan B.
So just remember, if all of a sudden this doesn't make it to air, now you know why.
Right.
I want to get back to wrestling before we wrap this whole thing up because we've got a few minutes left here.
Sure.
You've done a lot of factions inside of TNA. Like you've been a part of a lot of factions, a lot of in there. And now you're finally getting a chance to break out and do some single stuff. I know that the character was never really a faction type character, but obviously you said earlier with your desire to work with Abyss and develop and grow, you've done all of that stuff. Is there outside of that? Because we know your reasons for that. It was kind of like, you got one of your best friends in Rosemary, you've got Abyss, something that, but outside of that, has there been a favorite group or faction that you've worked with so far?
It's got to be Decay, like the original incarnation of Decay. It's got to be
the original one.
Yes. And that has no, like, I'm not disparaging any of the other factions either. It doesn't mean you all get bumped. It just speaks to the time. Like, you don't repeat things that happened. Like, Decay blew up. And it didn't blow up. It blew up, but not for the reasons of, like, they were shoving it down people's throats. We were put with the Hardys because it naturally fit. Like the Hardys were all in the landscape of TNA. If you look at it as its own world, the Hardys take up a big portion of that world. Whereas Decay grew from TNA and became on the same ground as the Hardys. We were the number 2, if not the number 1 selling T-shirt in that company, and we always would fluctuate with the Hardys. And then you come the Great War, Bound for Glory. It's our WrestleMania of TNA, and we are paired together in this climactic match that has had story and all this, not just story, but just stuff that you had never seen before. This is before the pandemic. This is before cinematic wrestling was popularized, right? And we weren't the first to break that ground by any stretch of the imagination, but we definitely made the most of our minutes. And things were moving so fast. And this is not, at the time, TNA was known for not paying their talent on time. That was one of the bad things that was going on. But to Abyss, to a crazy, but he'd be a different story, but to definitely new people like myself and Rosemary at the time, we were still getting our money. It may not have been on time, but we were getting it, but it did not matter to us. We were never focused on that. We were so focused on like how awesome it is that they're letting us do our thing. It's not like we were the ones who were pitching these ideas. Here's where we think we need to go. They were entrusting in us to come up with the look, to come up with the theme music, to come up with like all of these things. They were putting it in our hands. They weren't telling us what to do. They were giving us the ball because they saw that it worked. And it was happening on a natural basis. Like it was just organically, we were brought together with the Hardys. They weren't trying to shove us down our throat. And so all that happened at such a fast pace. It was like on a roller coaster that just kept going up. And I know this so much because I've talked about it with Rosemary several times while it was happening. Like it was so exciting that you can't really, to try and chase that dragon now would be impossible because it's just something that happened. It's a moment in time that happened. And I was fortunate enough to like at least recognize it for what it was. But like, that's why I put it at its place. Not because it was like, it doesn't mean it was better than any other time, but it just makes it more special because you can't repeat that time. What I had with Black Taurus and Rosemary and Havoc is equally as special, and it holds a special place in my heart for sure, and it has all the same stories with different colors, but like if you just can't repeat certain things, and that's kind of, you know what I mean, and that's what it was. And I was fortunate enough to.
Did it feel like that you were just trying, that they were just trying to repeat something with Black Taurus and that?
No, it didn't. But it also was different for me because it was completely out of my hands. It was not like, hey, they just told me they're bringing Decay back. If it was up to me and Rosemary, it never would have happened when it happened. We would have teased it far much longer. There would have been far more thought put into how we went about it. We were given opportunities in Wrestle House where we interacted, and it was consciously my decision to be like, hey, because at the time of Wrestle House season 1, I was still the clown. I was doing clown stuff. It was in between. And then I said, like, whenever me and Rosemary have an interaction, it's going to be a complete switch of wardrobe and face paint and like the demeanor, everything. You will know that there's a difference there. And it was Decay Crazy Steve. It was Decay Crazy, not Clown Crazy.
Right.
And they're two different, in my brain, and two very different entities, as well as the one that we're having currently. It's a different entity than, you know. So, and fans picked up on that as well. But like, yeah, it was just a different dynamic altogether because I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't speak the language. I don't know if he knows about Decay or what the work that we put in or how over it was or how, I don't know if he even cares. And I come to find out after, being with him for 3 years that he knew everything. He did his homework. He was excited. He was happy. He thought it was cool to be a part of this faction. And he cared about it. And it showed in his work, but it also came across in the conversations that we did have, despite the fact that he didn't speak English. And like, yeah, again, and then Jessica as well, she's, like, how do you not say it? Like, there's no bad words you can say about Jessica Hadley. Like, she's awesome. She's such a sweetheart. And like, she's so excited to be a part of Decay, and she's so happy to be, she knows, she's watched, she's a fan, like her allegiance or loyalty, you don't have to question it. She's all in. She's ready to go. So like, again, I'm not speaking negative on any of the ones, but like, if you ask me the question, like, yes, like 2016, and I think the audience would understand that too. Like, it was a special time.
Yeah, 100%. And now you've got a chance. You got the singles run is happening now. They put a belt on you. Right, they've given Tommy Dreamer a bit of a break. God knows he's going to have a lot of other things to go on now. Who do you like before? Let's say in a perfect world, everybody stays exactly where they are with the company. Right, in a perfect world, who do you want to work with in the very near future for that title?
It's changed. I had someone, and it's changed, and I can't tell you who that is.
I never asked. I'm not. Here's one thing you have to remember, Steve. I'm not a fucking journalist, so I don't care.
Yes, I had an answer for that as soon as I knew the opportunity was coming my way. I had I had that person.
Okay.
You know me, and I'm playing. And then it changed. The landscape has changed, and now I can't use that person. So now I am looking for the next person.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a couple people on my radar. Like there's a bunch of dude, that roster is so deep in the sense of like who I'd like to work with, who I haven't got a chance to work with because I'm in this opportunity now, like you said, in a singles run. Jake something. Give me Jake something.
Nice.
Like, I know what his finish is. If there's anybody who knows how to counter that finish, it's me. You know, like just based off of my tag partner alone.
I think the dynamic of the two of you guys working would be very good too. The styles, the styles would bring out the best of one another. There's no doubt about it.
1,000%. I would love to work with a Jake something. I've said multiple occasions, give me Rich Swann. Please give me Rich Swann.
Just for the dance off.
Come on. The star characters alone, give me Rich Swann. Chris Bay is another one I would like. I know he's a tag team specialist currently, but give me him in a singles. I would love to work with Chris Bay. And the reality of our locker room is you never know who's going to come in.
Right.
I don't know. Like, honestly, let's look at the landscape. We've got Nick Nemeth, who's just showed up. Mustafa Ali is on our next run of loops. Like, you just never know. It's such a hotbed for talent right now who want to be a part of the TNA rebrand and this movement that's happening that you just never know. So, like, the landscape is really open. You know, I would love to get another crack at Steve Macklin in where I'm at now, because where I was when I first met him versus where I am now is a completely different thing altogether. I mean, I could list off a bunch of people. I could be here forever, honestly. But yeah, right off the top of my head, those are my.
Well, I noticed somebody you didn't say was Eric Young, but that's obviously just because you don't want to get beat up by the old man anymore.
Hang on now, Eric. Before you go, Eric Young has a title on himself, which is he's the world-class maniac.
Well, we've known that for how long?
I'm putting it out in the universe, though.
Okay.
Like, let's be real. Eric Young is my sensei, but I have more. Hopefully, hopefully, with natural disasters taken out of the equation, I've got more years in my career than he does, and he's got that world-class maniac title.
Yeah, no, he sat in an inflatable donut and fished for sharks in the middle of the fucking ocean.
Okay, well, I don't know if I can do that, but I want to beat him for that, at least that title.
Yeah,
I want to take that title from him.
There's so many opportunities. I think so many more for a guy who's been in the company for as long as you have. Like, is there currently anybody, because I'm sure you've thought about it because you're a nerd. Is there anybody currently in that locker room that's been there longer than you?
Eddie Edwards, because he was hired a couple weeks before I was.
Wow.
I remember that specific. We're one of the main groups, to the point where like Eddie will still text me thinking that I never left the company, but I did leave the company in 2017 to 2020. And I was gone from the company. So like, but he was like, hey, remember that time in Mexico City? I was like, bro, I wasn't there. He's like, oh yeah, there's never a time where I don't remember you being there. But yes, Eddie Edwards is the one. Rosemary's never left. I was there before Rosemary, but she was there in my absence. So she still has chapters missing. She can fill in the chapters that I don't have.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Yes,
dude.
Those are the only two.
I am super, super happy and excited for you, brother. I love seeing this evolution of you happen before everybody's eyes. It's something that I've talked about for a long time. So more people need to get on that Crazy Steve bandwagon for sure.
Yeah, hey, I'm all for it. I can't see where I'm going, but if you want to follow me, please do.
Yeah, just don't get him to drive, ladies and gentlemen. It's a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea. I still think the whole thing's a work. He's just trying to play that the long con on the babyface card.
I don't know about that. Hey man, every zoo is a petting zoo if you're not a pussy. So
that is true. That is true. Just not a daycare.
You want to get in with the Lions, come on in, pet them.
So Steve, obviously, where can people check you out? I've got it down there if they want to, If they want to see you on Twitter, it is the Steve of Crazy, right?
Yes, sir.
If they want to get a hold of you and book you in South Dakota, for example, maybe, because it's not nearly as far as North Dakota, maybe, they can send it to bookcrazysteve@gmail.com. Always remember that that's crazy with 2 Z's. We don't want to confuse him with some character from a Nickelodeon kids show. Apparently,
I was Crazy Steve before he was.
Okay, all right. Wait, listen, bro. I'm not judging.
Hey, it's been brought up on past podcasts.
Holy crap! These prima donnas. You give this guy a belt, and all of a sudden, look at him.
I'm just saying. Through history has shown me. Go ahead. Yes, you brought it up, not me, man.
Yeah, that's what I do. Steve, you are the absolute best. You are the best. I love you to death, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck and success. And we're gonna do this again. I mean, you can't get out of it. We're always going to continue to do these things because the story is always evolving. The story is always changing, just like the character, right? So we got to get caught up.
If there's passion from your listeners who want to hear it again and want to hear the next chapter, I'm happy to tell it. So yes, anytime, my friend.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Law Live Audio Wrestling. I am Chris Tidwell. That is Crazy Steve with 2 Z's. Don't get it twisted. And stick right there. We'll be right back after this.